What's up, guys? It is time for a top 10 sort of list for the year. It's the final day of 2021. Every toy that I'm going to get for the year has come and hopefully has been unboxed and opened. Not everything on this list has been reviewed, and it's also not 10 figures. You know, normally I do like a Marvel Legends top 10 and a Star Wars top 10 and maybe a Turtles top 10 and maybe a Legions top 10. And then an overall top 10. This is just going to be an overall list, but it's not even 10. It's 21 figures, technically more depending on how you want to interpret one of them, or maybe two. And it's not even necessarily in any order. This is literally just going to be me talking about my favorite figures, favorite toys of the year. And this is everything. So it's not price point related, it's not brand related, it's not line related. Anything goes in this list for my love and eventual, around this room, shelf space one day. So we're going to kick it off with, well, not the bottom entry, it's just the first entry. And this is the one that should have been on the list last year, but I got them just too late. So this is one of those goofy instances where something doesn't arrive at the end of the year. It arrives just after the first. This literally arrived on January 2nd, 2021, and that would be my Kickstarter order of plunderlings. And I mean, if you've seen my reviews over this year, you know that they have made cameos in tons of videos. That alone tells you just how much fun I've had with these things. I think they are incredibly well made. They're goofy, they're funny, they're incredibly unique. And I just love everything about them. I love playing with them. I love mixing and matching them. I love the general fun spirit about these figures. I like the little baby plunderlings that we got. I like the fact that we were able to get the fawns in the mid-year. So there's a lot to love about this line. I have every single one that they've made. I'm very much all in on this line. And again, you know, like I said, if I had had them in time, they would have bumped something off my list last year. Now next, we're going to focus on a company that, I mean, if you watch the channel, you know I'm a big fan of. I try to stay up on just about every possible thing that I can when it comes to Super 7 stuff because they have all the licenses that are near and dear to my heart. They have metal licenses that I never thought were possible. They have Thundercats, they have Silverhawks coming, they have Turtles, of course, they've got Transformers, they've got G.I. Joe, they've got all kinds of stuff coming that I can't wait to have. But this year we only got, you know, a certain amount of stuff because of reasons, but there were some pretty exceptional figures that came out this year. The first of which is from, you know, my all-time favorite thing, Thundercats and Slithe, coming in not wave 2 but wave 3 of Thundercats. And you know, let's be honest, this is easily the best figure in the line at this point. He is so unique. The sculpt, the detail is crazy. The vintage-inspired accessories that we've got with him, the cartoon-inspired accessories that we've got, just the overall bulk and heft and size shelf presence on this guy. I mean, he is an absolute winner from beginning to end, the star of that wave, and then ultimately, no pun intended, became the star of the entire line. Maybe until Mumra gets here. We'll see if he gets dethroned, but Slithe is just up there as far as best Thundercat from Super 7 for sure. Beyond that, we've got metal stuff, and there were two releases in particular this year that were vying for my attention, and one of them just kind of edged the other one out because I'm a little bit more partial to Ghost than I am King Diamond, and this Papa Emeritus figure absolutely blew me away. I love him so much that I had to get a second one so I can display him with the white robes and the black and red robes, and it's just an awesome figure. It's one of those things that it's cool to have in figure form. The idea makes perfect sense, but the fact that it actually exists is just insane. I'm really surprised that we even got to this point, but Super 7 did a really good job with these from just a build standpoint, paint standpoint, especially on that head sculpt, and the absurd usage of soft goods on this figure can't be understated, not to mention all the accessories that you get and the ability to make him into two distinct Papas. And then lastly, we've got a figure that I pretty much outright said was going to mess up your top 10 list once you got him in hand. That would, of course, be the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Mukman figure. There isn't anything more that I can say about this guy except that he is gross and disgusting, and that is the best possible way that they could have made this figure. He's just disturbingly gruesome in his detail, the sculpt, the paint applications, and then honestly, it's a big theme with this particular list. His size, his shelf presence. He's absolutely massive. He's pretty much the biggest figure in the line at this point, and I think they really went over the top to make sure that he kind of shined and pretty much, overperformed when it came to this particular wave, because it's a really stacked wave, and yet he stands out among the bunch. Really, really a high point of the entire line so far, and one that I was hoping but wasn't necessarily expecting was going to be just that good. Keeping in line with Turtles, we're going to have to talk about the other company that makes Turtles, the one that makes the majority of the Turtles product that we get these days, and that would of course be NECA. And there are two distinct Turtles releases that kind of stand out for me this year. Let's be honest, the Toon line has been firing on all cylinders all year long. The line has basically doubled in size this year alone, and it's just banger after banger when it comes to amazing releases. But I can't have the whole thing on the list. That would be kind of boring, although it's not necessarily undeserved, I suppose. So the first set is the Turtles in Disguise. And let's be honest, these are the Turtles that we probably should have gotten from the beginning, but I'm not unhappy that we kind of got a different set and then we got these to kind of accentuate our collections, because this set has everything. It has the Turtles that you want in a new and incredibly well-made form with those interchangeable expression heads, 1,000,001 accessories. You've got the disguise sets, of course, but even if you don't care about that, you have the best Turtles that NECA has made in the Toon line, and pretty much anything maybe except for the movie Turtles throughout the entirety of NECA Turtles. So they absolutely knocked it out of the park. I mean, it was obviously one that everybody had to have because it was so hard to get for a while. And it's just an amazing, amazing collection of turtle figures and, again, 1,000,001 turtle accessories. But keeping in line with kind of the theme of this list, it's like big stuff. Big figures have really caught my attention this year. Chrome Dome is up there for me as individual release of the year. So the Turtles are their own set, but Chrome Dome is just like everything I wanted him to be. He is humongous. He's incredibly well articulated. He's got a decent, if not small, array of accessories, but he doesn't really need a whole lot anyway. But for me, it's all about his sculpt and that cartoon accuracy. He just looks like he jumped right out of the screen. And again, I wanted this massive, massive Chrome Dome. I love the vintage toy for Chrome Dome, but that's not how he looks in the cartoon. This is one of those instances where having that very, very different version specific for the cartoon that can be absolutely massive is a huge plus for the Toon line. And I think NECA absolutely knocked it out of the park. He's incredibly well made from top to bottom. Switching gears to something, well, pretty different, still keeping on the big side. We're skewing big, especially for this line when it comes to these next two things. So we're going to Bandai Tamashii Nation's Dragon Ball Z SH Figuarts, and there were two releases in particular for me that stood out all year long. This was a year of very good Dragon Ball Figuarts, like pretty much non-stop good stuff. Didn't get everything out this year because a lot of delays happened. Gohan was lost at sea for a long time, but there were two releases in particular, the first of which completed the Ginyu Force, and that was a huge thing for me personally, just to finally get that team done. And we're talking about Birder in specific. So he comes with Goldo, but of course Birder is my favorite member of the Ginyu Force, and he's just the star of the show for me. Everything about this figure from top to bottom is incredibly well done. Sculpt, colors, articulation, accessories, the expression on the head sculpt, everything about him looks great. He's able to hit those goofy, weird poses that you just have to have when it comes to these guys. I think they did a tremendous job on him. The entire Ginyu Force is incredibly well done. Goldo is a little bit on the disappointment side, but he's a pack-in. He does what he needs to do. It's all about Birder for me, though, and I really can't describe exactly how excited I was to finally get that guy out of the package, play around with him, and just shove him in a pose with all of those goofy guys, and just to say it's finally done. And then the next one is another big one, and this is one that kind of edged out another figure. So I did that sort of mid-year video where I had my top 10, sort of one from various lines list, and the figure from that list was Frieza in the first form with the Frieza pod. But his brother arrived, and for me, that kind of takes the cake a little bit. So Cooler is my preference when it comes to the two brothers of the Frieza Force on the list. And I just think he looks amazing. The articulation is through the roof, the sculpt, the overall just shelf presence. Again, really, really big figure, but I really like these larger Dragon Ball Figuarts. For some reason, they absolutely do it for me. And he is no exception. He looks great. He moves exceptionally well. He comes with really solid accessories. He could probably use an effect piece, but he comes with everything else that you could possibly need, and he looks great. That's really what it comes down to. He just looks great, moves incredibly well, very fluid, easy to pose, very dynamic, and just a very menacing, awesome, very heavy on the shelf presence kind of figure. Next, we're going to go to a property, but not one manufacturer. And this is where it gets into that situation where I said anything goes, anything is up for grabs, because these are two very different figures that are going to kind of get the spotlight for me for a second. So the first of which is a Mattel Masters of the Universe figure, and you might know where this is going, but maybe not necessarily which line. And we're talking Masterverse and Wave 3 in particular, because my favorite character was released in that wave, so of course Stinkor is going to appear on this list somewhere. Now, he doesn't smell, and that is probably one of the greatest crimes in the history of toys, but I have been dying to see Stinkor on the screen again. I've been dying to get a new Stinkor figure, and I really enjoyed that brief moment that he was on screen in Revelation. He didn't exactly get to, steal the spotlight or anything, but I'm glad that he was there. It was just really fulfilling to me for some reason. And then, of course, he gets an awesome figure, easily one of the best figures in the line. It looks exactly like his show counterpart, comes with a really great alternate head sculpt, moves just as good as anything else in the line. And again, for me, it's nice to just be able to get another Skunk Man. That's really, at the end of the day, all I wanted. But there is another company out there doing Masters of the Universe, and again, these are on two very, very different ends of the spectrum. We're going to talk Mondo for a second, and they kind of came back from the dead for a while this year. So they've been doing their 1/6 scale for a number of years now, after a number of years of being in sort of limbo with the line. But they started things off with Keldor at the midpoint of the year, something like that. And then towards the end, they kind of ramped it back up with my favorite villain in all of MOTU, Hordak. And I can't describe exactly how excited I was to get this. We could insert either the regular one or the Filmation one here, whichever you have. But if you have it, the Filmation one is probably the one that I would say edges out the classic variant for me. It was all about getting that Filmation one, going to PowerCon, pre-ordering him in person, was part of the experience. But I love these figures. I'm a big fan of this line, and this Hordak in particular is one that I have just been dying to get my hands on because he's been teased for years and years, and now he's finally here, and not only does he look amazing, he pretty much exceeded all my expectations too by coming with 1,000,001 accessories. The Filmation one even comes with Imp, and it's just an awesome figure. Another huge figure, even bigger than the rest so far, with a tremendous amount of shelf presence, and easily one of the most detailed figures that Mondo has put out in this line so far. Now, this one is tangentially related to MOTU, but it's not at all. So we're going to go to Mezco, and if you kind of pick up on that, you know exactly who we're talking about next. We are talking about the Cimmerian himself, Conan the Barbarian, the Frank Frazetta version of Conan. This is one that I have just been waiting for literally a very, very long time. This was the first Mezco that I ever ordered, but it was definitely not the first one that I received because, of course, he was very delayed. And that's what kind of made him even more special to me, because not only did we wait a very long time for this figure, but he absolutely crushed every single expectation that I had. Mezco is very specific when it comes to a lot of their figures because all of them are hidden by that cloth body. So they get to be clothed, they get to be cloaked. You don't see all the articulation. Conan is almost naked, so he is very different. He's a very unique style of figure for Mezco, and I think they did a great job of tailoring that need into this figure very well. He comes with an incredible array of accessories. He's got great soft goods, two incredibly well done head sculpts, and just an amazing figure all around. I mean, it was literally everything I wanted in this version of Conan. And we're going to go back to Bandai now with a Gundam release because, well, I collect a lot of Gundam stuff, and there's one release specifically this year that kind of overshadowed everything for me when it comes to Gundam stuff. Typically because, well, it's my favorite Gundam, but also because I have a real soft spot for the Gundam Universe line. There's something about being able to see Gundam figures on the shelf in a retail store again for the first time in forever that really does something for me. And we finally got my favorite Gundam this year, the Sandrock. And not only did we get my favorite Gundam this year, he is also one of, if not the best figures in the line for a number of reasons. Accessory count, accessory selection. He doesn't have everything, but he has all the stuff you truly need. He has probably one of the best sculpts in the line, and he's also one of the best articulated figures in this line as well. A lot of these figures do have some hang-ups, but the Sandrock is very devoid of that. He is very, quote-unquote, normal in many ways. He just moves very well and looks really good doing it too. It's one thing for him to be my favorite Gundam. I would have already been kind of biased in the first place, but the fact that he actually was a lot better than other figures in this entire line so far really made me appreciate this one a whole lot more. Now, what would a list or rambling of figures be from me without Mythic Legions? And this was an interesting year because we got a bunch of different stuff. But there was one wave in particular that, of course, everybody has been dying to get a hold of, and it's been one that's just sort of been awaited for so long because it has such an important point to play in the line, and that would of course been the Erithir wave. So of course I have to talk about the man himself. Erithir is on the list, and he just works really, really well selling the idea of being one of the horsemen, and he looks incredibly good doing it. They did a great job of incorporating this sort of fire motif into this big monster demon with the huge fire plume head sculpt. You've got the wings that you might want to use. I tend to not use them, honestly. I think he gets the job done just with those monster pauldrons, which of course are a huge selling factor alone because they're so unique. But it's everything about this figure that I think a lot of folks have really been looking forward to, and the Horseman just absolutely knocked it out of the park. He is a benchmark kind of figure when it comes to Legions. Now that said, he's not my favorite Legions character this year. He is my second favorite, probably, I would say at this point, because one of his commanders is my favorite. Belfuror is and has been my favorite Legions figure this year for quite a while because everything about him just oozes this nasty, evil vibe, and I really like it. It's one of those weird instances where he's more evil looking to me than the actual big evil bad guy. He's got a very Legend, darkness look and feel. That head sculpt is so unique. I love the big collar piece that he has. I love the fact that he's one of the figures that got to come with those new expressive hands right in the box. He's hooved, so there's a lot of stuff going on with him in particular. Throw some of those red wings on him if you want, make him look even more evil, but this guy absolutely stole the wave for me. I was really looking forward to Erithir, and don't get me wrong, he absolutely does it on every level, but Belfuror was a huge, huge surprise. Everything about him was just a little bit cooler and a little bit more evil to me. And then we're going to roll into Hasbro because I guess you might have noticed that they haven't been mentioned yet, but they have a decent handful because of course they have a decent number of lines. And this is a very weird instance where I don't have any Star Wars figures to talk about here. I don't have any. I had a couple on the list and they got knocked out, but honestly I feel like Black Series has had such a weird year that I just don't have anything that I want to put on this list. I'd rather give it to some other lines when it comes to Hasbro, the first of which is G.I. Joe Classified Series, and a figure that I literally just got, but of course, when everybody gets one, they're going to put it on their list exactly like I am, because the Cobra Bat is easily one of the coolest figures Hasbro has made this year, period. Everything about it just is perfection, really. The interchangeable battle damage pieces, all of the interchangeable arm pieces, just the overall sculpt, the pinless technology going on in this guy in particular. I love seeing that in non-Marvel Legends lines. And really, it's one of those army builders that even if you're not a huge Joe fan, like I'm not a huge Joe fan, I've never been a huge Joe collector, this is one of those ones that you're going to want, because when you get one, you're going to want to build like too many of them. Like I've already got way too many on pre-order from like 15 different retailers because I just want a lot of them. And frankly, anybody who doesn't have one is absolutely going to love it whenever their order finally arrives. Next up, we're going to go to Power Rangers, and this one's kind of a weird one. I don't know if he's actually out or not. I got this one as a sample from Hasbro from the PulseCon stuff, so, full disclosure there. But I think other people have him, but I don't really know how he is or isn't getting out yet. I'm not so sure, so, don't kill me on this one. But Finster is easily the best Power Rangers figure this year, whenever he comes out. He is easily the best probably in the entire line, if I had to really go that far. Everything about this guy, for some reason, seems to be a step up from every other figure. Sculpt, paint, accessories, overall screen accuracy, the briefcase that he has that has the little putties inside. I mean, everything about this guy in particular is super, super ratcheted up when it comes to detail. It's kind of weird. It's almost like he fits into a subline of better figures that have more attention paid to them than everything else when it comes to the Lightning Collection. And then lastly, of course, we have to talk about Marvel Legends from Hasbro, because that's important, right? They make some Marvel figures. And there's one figure, well, up until we moved, there was one figure that did not ever leave my desk, and I just played with him all the time, and that would be the giant floating head MODOK, because I love everything about this stupid figure. I've never had one. I never had the Toy Biz figure, so I'd always kind of wanted one, and I think Hasbro just absolutely knocked it out of the park with the interchangeable faces, with the expressive hands, just the overall presentation, the size, I love the swirly metallic plastic that they use, the big monster blast effect that's coming out of his butt, the whole deal. I really love everything about this. And then if you want to go one step further, I suppose, you know, the Elvis MODOK exclusive was an equally, if not more ridiculous concept that worked out just as well. But that was a deluxe figure. I'm going to talk about a single figure next, and this one, honestly, this one absolutely took me by surprise because I didn't really think I was going to care. There was a lot of stuff about this particular wave that I didn't really care about, but when I got to messing around with pretty much all of it, it was like, well, this is good, this is good, this is good. Oh crap, this one is absolutely amazing. And that would be the What If Wave Zombie Captain America. This figure absolutely blew me away. Like, everything about it is fantastic. I love the sculpt, the paint, the amount of blood on a Hasbro Marvel Legends figure is like more than most figures get in an entire year when it comes to them, like more than a line gets. He comes with one needed accessory, but frankly, he could have come with nothing and I would have been just fine with him still. His articulation is fantastic. He's completely pinless. He looks amazing, and it's one of those figures that just looks super dynamic, doing almost nothing. Like, you can put him into any scene with any other figure and it works incredibly well, and that's why I've had so much fun with him. You can do literally anything with him, put him anywhere, and he looks like he fits there because he's a zombie. And if anything, I hope this means that we get more, because they absolutely crushed it with this guy. And although I didn't really plan it to be this way, I'm going to do a Build-A-Figure too. So we're getting a deluxe, a regular figure, and a Build-A-Figure. And this is another figure that I didn't do a review for. I should have done it because he is one of my favorite Marvel characters ever. But the best Build-A-Figure this year for me was the Age of Apocalypse Colossus. This is one I've waited for a very long time. I absolutely love the AOA stuff. I think they killed it with this year's wave in particular, but the Build-A-Figure choice was just, I mean, like chef's kiss, perfect. I love everything about him. He's big, another theme in this wave, in this list, another big figure, but he looks amazing. He's got that really good head sculpt with the very expressive gritting of the teeth. You've got extra hands for him. He's incredibly well articulated, very dynamic, very easy to pose. And again, he's bigger than the other two Colossus's figures that we have. And he just looks great. Again, it's another one that I didn't really think we were going to get. Like, we get an AOA wave and it's like, yeah, we'll probably get some more. Who knows how long it'll take to get to Colossus, but bam, we get him in wave 2. And I couldn't be happier. He's one of my favorite all-time Marvel characters. And this is just a wacky version that I've really, really been looking forward to. But there's one more Marvel figure to talk about, and this one, of course, is not without his own controversy. This is one that I didn't do a review for either because I got mine so late and they'd already been talked about from, you know, here to the end of the world. So we're just going to bring him up now because I do love this thing. So I can't get him in the spinny orange zone, so you're just going to have to deal with him right here. The Sentinel, I mean, how could he not be on the list? Light him up. How could he not be on the list? I've had so much fun with this guy. I mean, this one, I have 3. This one currently sits on my desk so I can have a buddy with me all day long to play around with other figures. And it's just great. You know, my knees, because we got to talk about them, my knees are fine. I haven't had any issues. He's never fallen over. He looks great standing up. He looks great in a walk. He looks great running. He looks great bashing mutants. I am so happy that this guy came out. I'm so happy that I finally got mine. You know, it was a bit of an ordeal to finally get a hold of mine, especially since we moved during the shipping process. But at the end of the day, I have them, and I'm very happy that I have them. And I'm very much looking forward to Galactus even more because of how much I enjoy this guy. But that's only 20, and there has to be another figure on this list because, you know, for whatever reason, I did end up with 21. I didn't do this on purpose. It sort of organically happened. You'll just have to take my word for it. I didn't plan to do a 21 for 21, but here we are. So if you caught my mid-year top 10 my same top #1 figure, top 10, whatever you want to call it, figure of the year remains. I was kind of surprised. I thought the Sentinel might take it, but this thing still has been one of my favorite things all year long. I've had it for the entire year basically, so it does kind of play into that. But the Bandai Tamashii Nations Dynaction Evangelion Unit 1 is my favorite toy this year. I absolutely adore this thing. It's everything I like about Robot Spirits, just huge. So this thing's 16 inches tall roughly. It comes with a ton of accessories. It comes with this most ridiculous stand, but it's all about the posability on this thing, because the articulation is through the freaking roof on this thing. So it's not like the Sentinel where it's big and it loses some articulation because of how big it is. This thing is probably more articulated than a lot of smaller figures. I mean, look at that. It's got all this crazy, crazy range. So much of this stuff just moves in every freaking direction possible. It's beautiful looking, it's big, it's really fun to play with, and that's ultimately why I'm still so happy with it and why I want it to be at the top of the list, because this is a list of my favorites. This is a list of toys that I have had a ton of fun with this year, because obviously not everything on this list is technically the best. But this thing is just amazing. It's huge. It's incredibly impressive when it comes to articulation. The sculpt on it is really good. The paint, the detail is fantastic. And it's just a ton of fun to play around with. It's fun to put it into goofy situations, put it with figures that it doesn't belong with. So it's one of those things where it's fun for a number of reasons, not just because it's an incredibly well-made figure, but because it's just a fun toy that happens to also be bigger than my head. So that is my list. So that is 21 toys. Well, more if you count some of those sets. The Turtles are 4 figures. The Plunderlings are 20 figures. But I think you know what I mean. 21 entries that have had an impact on me this year that hopefully I don't go back and realize that I missed 5 or 6 other figures. I don't think so. I tried to do my homework going back. Some of them, obviously, I didn't review for whatever reason, but I play with a lot of toys that aren't being reviewed too. So you'll just have to take my word for some of these. But a lot of awesome stuff came out this year, there is no doubt. I mean, I could have gone on and on and on about this one. I probably talked for way too long anyway. But I think we've had a crazy year of toys, not just because all this stuff managed to come out during a pandemic still, but just because there's some stellar releases from pretty much every company. Everybody's firing on all cylinders right now, and I just can't wait to see what everybody else is coming out with next year, because, I mean, it's going to be better, right? We're probably going to get more and more and more of this stuff to a higher degree in 2022. So let me know what you guys think of this list. Tell me how wrong I am. Tell me how right I am. Let me know what your favorite stuff is. I don't care if it's in order or anything. Just tell me some stuff that you like this year, preferably stuff that isn't on my list. I'd love to know some stuff that I don't collect or that I haven't bought that is also really cool and a lot of fun. And I'll catch you guys next year.